Okay, welcome to session 4 of our college application help. We are talking about the personal statement again today. And last time we talked about the two different structures, narrative and montage. So make sure that you've watched that video. And you should have a lot of brainstorm material that you've collected over the last few weeks. Today, we're going to talk about the 8 most common types of essays or like topics that you can write about, and then get you headed towards your rough draft. So to review, there are two structures that you can use for your essay, the narrative or the montage. Remember, the narrative is like a story that goes in chronological order, what happened to you, what you did about it, and what you learned through the process. Montage is a collection of smaller, like anecdotes and reflections that are all united by one umbrella topic or a common theme or a frame. So, part of your homework was to look at least some of the sample essays in the document that we shared. And that first essay, the My Desk essay, is a great example of a montage where the essay is structured around the person sharing about his desk and then what all the different little things are that are on the desk and what each of those sort of represents about him. So no matter what you write about, you'll be using one of those two structures. Now, as far as what you can write about, we've already talked about the possibility of writing about a challenge, and we said that would be narrative structure. So two examples of that from the shared essay document are the Dead Bird essay and also Raising Anthony. They tell about a specific challenge, basically in chronological order. They're kind of zoomed in on some like a certain aspect of the person's life, and there's a connection between the events that like one thing causes the next thing causes the next thing. All the rest, if you're not doing a challenge, then you'll be using montage structure. So the next possible type of essay that you could write would be one about your career. This would be like a good fit if you have a pretty strong idea of what you want to do and you feel pretty confident about that. It's something you've thought about for a long time. I just added an example essay for this to the bottom of that sample essay document. So the same link that you had from last week. It's called Why Behavioral Economics. Well, and this is a good time to point out, I don't think that was a title given to the essay. That's just the title given to it by a college essay guy and me in that document. You don't have to have a title for your essay. You can, it does count as part of the word count. That can be a nice creative touch if you have the words and you have an idea, but you don't have to have a title for this essay. So anyway, check that one out if you want an example of how you could write about a career. So remember, all of the essays are going to include your core values for sure. So a career essay definitely has to connect those values to things that are needed or are helpful in that career. So if you remember on the values exercise, I think the last step asked you to like make a little mark or a color code for the values that related to your intended career. That would be a great starting point if you want to pursue this option. Number 3 is essence objects. We did that exercise. Two examples of that style are the My Desk essay. Those are basically essence objects. And also the last one in the list, Umbra, which is sort of the most experimental, but I think, well, actually, it was originally the last one, not the last one anymore. Anyway, I like to include that one just because I think it helps you think outside the box. So if you're a more creative person, like you can really get pretty creative with this stuff. Number 4, something you know and love. This is also a brainstorm exercise that we touched on. So an example for this one would be Mom Vibe and also List Maker. Remember, these are all montage. Number 5, superpowers or skills. Mom Vibe is also an example of this one. So you can see that different topics can fit. Like these types of topics, these types of essays, they overlap. So it could be an essay that is about your identities and your essence objects, or your superpowers and your career, right? So don't get like hung up on, well, which one is it? That's not the point. This is all geared to help you find a topic, find material, collect material that you can use in it, and like get yourself towards a really powerful, great essay. So superpowers and skills. Um, Another great brainstorming tool is to think about your superpowers. So those are things that you tend to do like almost effortlessly that actually are like kind of difficult or even impossible for others. For example, I pick up on the subtle emotions of others without even meaning to. But my husband can't do that to save his life, although he's actually getting much better at it. Um, One student I worked with in the past identified a superpower of writing thank you notes and encouraging notes to people. And like that's not something that would be easy for me. So your strengths are a little more objective, but your superpowers can be almost kind of silly, like seemingly trivial things that you just happen to do really well. Think about things in your friend group or something that you're known for. They could make an interesting superpower essay. Strengths, again, those tend to be a little more objective. They're still hard to see in ourselves a lot of times because this isn't just like, oh, I'm good at math. Although, I mean, could be. That's not the most interesting topic. Usually, when we're talking about strengths here, we mean like um, more like innate abilities. So your use science aptitudes, if you remember those from 10th grade, those are a great place to start. And also another good place to start is your Myers-Briggs type, if you know your type. That's the one with 4 letters, like I'm an INFJ, and that means I'm really good at pattern recognition. So that can become a great essay. Remember, you're not bragging, you're sharing about who you are. So it's not a bad thing to say that you're good at stuff, because hopefully you better be good at lots of things. Otherwise, why would they want you at their school, right? Number 6, home. You can think of this as your literal home. So there are many great essays out there where people write about what it's like in their house, like in their family compared to other families. This works especially well if your family is kind of unique. So if you're, a child of immigrants, or maybe you have lots of foster kids in your family, or just, a real like, an unusually large family, so there needs to be something a little bit unusual about your home to make this interesting. But just literally writing about your home could make a great essay. You could even, if you'd moved a lot, you could write an essay about the 8 different homes you've lived in, potentially. But you can also think of it a little bit more metaphorically, like when you're at home, like either places that where you feel at home that aren't actually your home, or activities that make you feel at home, people that make you feel at home. You can think about it as being like in the zone. So that's another brainstorming exercise I like to do sometimes, is think about what activities make you feel most like yourself. Like, what do you most love to do, or where you most love to be? What activities make you lose track of time, or, where are you like in your element? So you could brainstorm about that and turn that into a great essay. List maker, I think, falls into that category. It's something that she just loves, making lists. Number 7, uncommon activity. So this would be kind of like an extracurricular activity, but the trick is you want it to be uncommon. So you don't want to write your personal statement about like, I'm on a soccer team, because like 2,000 other people are on a soccer team and like 20,000 other people are on a sports team. So to make this topic work, it does need to be fairly unusual. It could be something super random, like something you wouldn't think of putting on an extracurriculars list, like making intricate playlists or hanging out with your grandmother. I had a student write her essay about making playlists. List maker, again, I think falls into that category as like an unusual activity that she's kind of obsessed with. And last, but perhaps not least, identities. Again, I think list maker works for this. She says, like, I come from a long line of list makers. So we all have many different facets of who we are. If you want to do a brainstorming exercise on this, you would list out as many identities as you can and see if one is particularly important to you or unusual. For example, if I was just like listing out identities for myself, it's like, well, I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I'm a teacher, I'm a child of God, I'm an empath, I'm a writer. So, you should be able to list out like dozens of identities. Another way to think about it, if you've seen Inside Out, of course, is those islands of personality. What would be your islands of personality? This, again, the facets of who you are, like the different um, angles or like identities that you take on in different contexts. So, pick maybe 5 to 7. You don't necessarily need to list out hundreds of things, but if there's one that stands out to you, that could be a great topic. So hopefully you have plenty of brainstorming material, lots of ideas, and then it's time to pick your topic or topics. I recommend that you start by picking probably even 2 or 3 topics. When I had the chance to look at people's brainstorming documents with them and help them think about their topics, which you can always share with me still and do that. But I would recommend they pick a few because sometimes they won't, they'll think, oh, this is going to be a great topic. And they start writing and they're like, actually, I don't have a lot to say about this. So if you have the time, recommend picking maybe at least 2. And in order to pick a topic, if you don't already have a good idea, I recommend that after you've done all this brainstorming activity, that you look through your Google document where you have that all collected, look through your notes and pick out a few things that jump out at you as particularly revealing or interesting or unusual or complex. Remember, you want to have plenty to say, even though we'll end up cutting it down to that 650 word limit. And of course, as you're looking over your brainstorm document, consider the list of the most common or useful essay topics that we just looked at, these 8 topics. Those, if you notice like, oh, like that fits in with home or that fits in with superpowers, then that might be a good sign that it could be a promising topic. But if you find something that doesn't seem to fit in with that list, that's okay too. If it appeals to you, if you have a lot to say, you think it's interesting, it could make a great topic. Okay, once you have picked a topic or 2 that you think you want to write about, it's time to evaluate your topic. Is it any good? Obviously, it seemed good to you or you wouldn't have picked it, but I have another little rubric you can use to evaluate it a little bit more. How do you know if it's going to make a good essay? You want it to be 2 things, uncommon and deep. And you can kind of think of this as like an XY axis. So, if you've got like depth here and uncommon here, you want your essay topic to be like the best possible essay topic would be like super uncommon and super deep. But, some topics might be, I'm forgetting which is which, like not as deep, but like pretty uncommon, or like super deep, but kind of common. So, it's not going to be 10 out of 10 for both qualities necessarily, but that's the goal, is to get them as uncommon and deep as possible. What do we mean by uncommon? We mean that it's not going to be showing up on every other essay that these people have to read. So they get bored. They want to read something new. They don't. The whole point of this is to show how you're unique from every other applicant. So the best topic is not going to be a very common one. So this could be an uncommon challenge if you're doing a challenge. So it would not be like an example of common challenges would be like trying, like you tried to win the cross country race or the sporting event and you didn't and it was hard, or something like that. Or even sadly, like, yeah, I struggle with depression or anxiety. Like, unfortunately, that's very common. It's got to be something else that's a little more unique. It could also just be an uncommon topic. So, back to before we talked about uncommon activities, right? So you don't want an essay that's like, why I like soccer, but something maybe about like bow hunting is like going to be a little more unusual. Or if you have a common challenge or a common topic, you can still make your essay unusual by coming up with uncommon connections and insights. Remember, that's on the list of the 4 qualities of a great college essay, is that you're going to show insights, like things that you learn, takeaways, sort of like deep thoughts that um, came up for you or come up for you related to your topic. So, to evaluate whether your connections and insights are unique or uncommon, start by thinking about what common insights or connections would be for your topic, for the values that you've selected or for the challenges or topic that you picked. So, for example, like if I had an essay about sports, right? What are some common insights or like takeaways that you might expect? I'm pausing for you to think of some. Okay, like you might expect something about the power of teamwork or like self-discipline or persistence or um, grit, like um, toughing it out or something like that. So if I wrote an essay about soccer and then about teamwork and grit, it would be pretty common, right? But what if I wrote about how playing soccer helped me develop a deep appreciation of beauty or strengthened my faith, right? That would be a lot more interesting. So start by thinking about what expected, like what someone would expect to hear about in relation to your topic, and then see if you can select some things that are not on that list. Right, so that's uncommon. You also want your topic to be deep. Now, the depth is going to largely depend on how you, like what you do with your topic, but you want it to have the potential for depth. So what we mean there is like the potential for that vulnerability that's so important for personal essays. You want it to be something pretty personal, like that has some revealing aspects to it that really gets to the heart of who you are. And you want it, especially with the montage, well, I mean, really with the challenge too, but like you want it to be something that is multifaceted and complex, that shows multiple sides of who you are, like not just one small aspect. So evaluate the topics that you've chosen, and you might, rate them like on a scale of 1 to 10, how uncommon are they? And on a scale of 1 to 10, how deep are they or how complex? What's their potential for depth and vulnerability? And that can help you choose between the topics, although again, you still need to just make sure that you have a lot to say. And if you look at it this way and realize, oh, this topic is like actually pretty shallow and common, then maybe go back to your brainstorm document and try to pick something else. Again, happy to help you evaluate your topics. Just share stuff with me. Let me know. All right. Part 3, last part for today, is writing your rough draft. So once you've picked a topic or two and you've evaluated them to make sure they're like fairly strong, then you're going to gather all the brainstorm material that you have related to those topics into one place. Then read it over and free write. So read over what you already have and then just like stream of consciousness, free write, whatever comes to mind. That should make sure that you have plenty of material to get you started. So you are like far from a blank page at this point. Next, review the structure for your essay type, whether it's montage or narrative. So I'll be looking over what I gave you for last session. For montage, you want to make sure that you're clear on the frame that you'll be using, that thing that unifies all your bits and pieces. So it could be something like the desk or the laptop with stickers on it, or it could be more of a theme, like everything that's related to, I don't know, like, now I'm blanking on options here, but like, um, well, I guess like with the list maker example essay, it's like different kinds of lists. But it's all united under that topic of lists, or it could be something about, so like mom vibe, right? Like all the different ways that you're like a mom. So make sure that you have that unifying theme or frame clear in your mind and write it down for yourself. And then also make sure that you've got a decent idea of like what that is going to reveal about you. Like what are the insights that are going to come out at the end? Now, I'll tell you that if you do this process right, you're going to discover more along the way. Writing is always a process of discovery, but it helps to have like an idea of where you're headed. If you're like, oh, this could be cool, but I have zero idea about what this means about me, it's probably not going to be a very easy time writing, or it might not be a great topic. So if you're not sure here, look back at your list of values. Whatever you're writing about should connect to at least one of those core values. So make sure that at this stage you clarify your frame and then write down like what are the values that this topic reveals about you. So again, you have an idea of where you're headed as far as those insights that will come at the end of a montage essay. For narrative, you're going to organize things in chronological order, refer to the feelings and needs exercise that was homework for you on the last session if you're considering writing about a challenge. And then just list out, there's three parts to that structure: what happened, what you did about it, and what you learned. So just summarize each of those for yourself. When you're actually writing the essay, and where you start collecting material, you want to make sure that the majority of the words on the page are about what you did. So you might have a paragraph or two about what happened, and then it should be a lot about how you responded to that, like what you tried, the strategies that you used to try to deal with this challenge, and then a good bit at the end about what you learned, those insights. Once you've done that, you've got like a basic outline, then you're going to start writing and or revising. I said revising because like if you have a ton of brainstorm material, it might feel more like revising than writing. Don't worry about word count right now. You want to have plenty of material so that you can whittle it down into something really concise and powerful later. I actually recommend that your rough draft is about twice as long as the final draft. So that would be like 1,000 words or maybe even more on this rough draft. Really, like, don't look at that at this point. You're just gonna like trip yourself up. So this is when you're going to be like filling in any gaps in the story, expanding on any of the essence objects that you're including, and just like adding sensory detail, all the things that bring a piece of writing to life. So I want to remind you that I am really good at editing and cutting words. I do it for a living now. So if you want any help with that, please don't hesitate to reach out. You can email me at mara@maraeller.com to make sure I see it right away. I don't check my CCS email very often anymore. And like, I'd be happy to help you, especially if you're like panicking because your essay is still 900 words or something. Like, that's not going to be a problem. We can cut it down. So your homework, again, is to select or refine your topic, make a basic outline, and then write that rough draft. Start revising. This is a little bit of an optional bonus at this point, depends on your timeline. If you're applying to FSU, right now, as I'm recording this, it's October 8th, the 15th. The priority deadline for FSU is literally a week from today. So it's not a ton of time to write and revise. So you're going to need to get started. If you've got more time, then don't worry about this step yet. But I wanted to share that AI can be a good tool for this part. Don't use AI to like write your essay for you. That will be obvious and you will get rejected. But AI is a great tool to help you revise, not to revise for you, but to help you. So whatever system you're using, you can tell it that you're working on a personal statement about whatever your topic is, and ask it to point out places where you could be more concise or where you could cut material. Do not ask it to revise and then cut and paste what it gives you. Always evaluate its suggestions. Don't let it cut unique details or personal insights. You're smarter than AI about your story and even about what a personal statement is meant to be. You could even feed it those qualities of a great personal statement. That'd be a great exercise. Give it that list that I provided of the 4 essential qualities of a great personal essay. It's in the sample essays Google Doc, so you could easily copy and paste it from there. Say, evaluate my essay according to these 4 qualities. Where, on a scale of 1 to 10, how am I doing for each one? That'd be super interesting. And then you can follow up that question with, how could I improve on this quality or that quality? But again, it likes to just revise it for you. But if you say, tell me exactly what changes you would make, it will tell you, and then you can make them. So if you're going to start revising, remember you want it to stay in your own voice so that it sounds like you if you read it out loud, or if you read it, excuse me, to a friend or to a parent. They should be like, oh yeah, like that sounds like you, not like that sounds like someone else wrote it or AI wrote it. And as always, reach out for help if you need it. Reach out to me or Mrs. Hollister, or of course, anyone else that you would like to ask for help. I know these can be personal. They should be somewhat personal. So you want it to be someone you trust, but I'll just add the word of warning there that parents and most English teachers even are not the best people to give you substantial revisions, because they don't understand typically what the goal is here. Remember, this is not an English essay. This is basically a mini memoir. So it really should be pretty different than what many people might think of as like excellent writing. And that's it. So again, let me know if you have any questions, and best of luck to you.